Welcome to the Crypt of Wax. If you are a regular here, you will notice that it is just me today. Mike is off gallivanting somewhere in the south of France, maybe somewhere. I don't know. But yeah, just me. If you are new here, we put out videos every Wednesday and Friday covering the latest metal releases. So give us a subscribe and yeah, hopefully you enjoy this one. Today, we're talking Warlock Corpse, Eternal Prisoner, the new record from well, I'm just going to read off his Bandcamp because he kind of sums it up nicely. Underground music from another world where magic, dragons, and evil warlocks exist, created on vintage synthesizers and recorded on cassette tape. Kind of like a dungeon synth raw black metal project. But yes, he has returned for new record, Eternal Prisoner. Normally, what we do on this show is we kind of pick an album to review and then don't speak about it between ourselves until we come onto the show. So there's a bit more of a discussion. Obviously, we can't do that today, so it's going to be a bit of a different show. So hopefully, you guys like this one. But what I'm going to do is just kind of go through go through this record a little bit and kind of explain what I loved about it. I guess a bit of self. Not discovery reporting. I really enjoyed actually his album Return of the Black Comet that came out in 2023. I think that was really top tier kind of dungeon synth raw black metal project. Go check that one out as well. But after this review and this album, so starting off, you've got the track Return to the Abandoned Castle, which starts off with this really nice kind of like looping piano melody, kind of introduces these kind of medieval, kind of like almost flute like synths, that kind of is the main motif throughout the whole song. You have these kind of drums, like these kind of distant war kind of banging on just one drum that kind of goes on for a little bit, but then does it intensify, and he sort of adds this kind of haunting choir that almost sounds like a little bit of a chanting thing going on. This song it's not like a typical kind of song structure in terms of like verse chorus. It's kind of more like a motif and piece that just sort of meanders a little bit, and changes, sort of reintroduces that intro melody to see out the song. Then you've got track 2, Last Light of a Dying Star, which is similar in its approach sonically, to the opener. Again, it's no vocals, no drums really. It's just sort of kind of a motif that just sort of meanders around a little bit. But this one had a bit more of an ominous tone, and the main motif in this actually really reminded me of like a sort of John Carpenter type hook. So I was really involved in interested into this one because I'm a big fan of the JC. Then into track 3, Black Throne. This is where the album sort of picks up a little bit. You've got this kind of like bouncing, almost like a plucked synth intro that kind of gives it a bit more tempo. And then this is the kind of first introduction of like some drums and vocals. Obviously, he's got these kind of like raspy, black metal-y kind of vocals. Don't think he speaks in English. He is from Kazakhstan, so I'm not too sure. But it's, I mean, it almost feels spoken word, but it's really cool, man. It really adds to a lot of atmosphere for this song. Then this kind of like double time, the drums double time, and then you've got this really catchy synth melody that acts as the chorus for this song. And I think it was a really smart choice to kind of not have any vocals over that, just have that kind of synth melody lead the way for the chorus. I think that by this point you're kind of like, oh, okay, this is quite an interesting album, because he's really understands how to make like a really cool lead line. It's really simple but like really catchy. Then you go into track 4, Path Through the Sapphire Gates. This song is kind of more like a shorter interlude almost. It's still like a minute and something long, but it's kind of like a passage again rather than like a verse chorus type thing, but quite uplifting in a way. But it kind of, it's a really nice place because it gives a kind of peaks and trough to the kind of pacing of the album, because then it goes into track 5, Gloomy Sanctum. Now this song really, the start of it really reminded me of like a frog ribbit. It was like the synth would like kind of echo and pan around like if you imagine like a frog ribbiting at a pond. It gave that kind of thing, and then the underlying melody almost gave me something like that you'd hear on like Perfect Dark, like that game on the N64. It had a kind of sci-fi quality to it, which was really interesting, man. Like I wasn't expecting it to go down that kind of sci-fi route because the majority of it was quite medieval in a way, like quite fantasy based. So this to have this kind of take on it was quite cool. Then you had this kind of like whispered vocal with these kind of wind soundscapes that was like just added to the atmosphere. And again, like this song wasn't like a verse chorus type thing like on track 3, but it sort of just again did like subtle shifts to kind of carry the song out. It had this really cool like chime like synth at the end. Again, a simple melody but really cool. Then I think this is where the album gets quite interesting because track 6, Eternal Prisoner, this was almost like an 80s, almost like an 80s hit, man. It had that kind of depressing new wave melody to the main hook, but this song actually featured spiritual slum, and I believe that he was like the sung vocal on this, and rather than like kind of like black metal-y vocal, and it really added to that element of like this feels like a kind of 80s throwback synth wave kind of song. It really stood out from the others, but in a good way. It didn't kind of stand out like like it wasn't jarring. It would kind of yeah, kind of it threw me, but in a good way. In a good way. Onto track 7. Sorry, I'm blasting through these, but I don't know how to do this without Mike, so yeah, stick with me. Funeral of the Enchanted Princess. This was also another kind of interlude track. This one felt a little bit more somber as well. Like it was it would be kind of something that you'd hear at a funeral. But again, there was no like it wasn't like a meat song. It was just like a passage that sort of just took you through into the next track, which was Obsidian Dreams, track 8. The opening synth melody of this was like had like an ethereal, dreamlike quality to it, and then they introduced this sort of main synth line that was very reminiscent. It reminded me of like a Game Boy soundboard, but there was sort of like some tape decay and reverb to it that sort of made it more hazy and like really emphasized that dreamlike quality. It's really cool song, man. Like one thing that this guy does is like he with his track titles and the actual songs themselves, they really kind of do paint a picture. So it's kind of quite cool to, because a lot of times like when I'll listen to something, I won't ever really read the track titles. I'll just the album will play through in the background, and I think when you actually take a minute and read the song titles, it kind of like elevates the song in a way, because it does kind of visually put you somewhere where maybe you wouldn't have gone otherwise. Track 9, Shards of a Doomed World. Song opens up. This kind of again leaned into that kind of sci-fi feel. It had a kind of Vangelis quality to it. It was kind of reminded me of something you'd have like from Blade Runner. This track was really cinematic. There wasn't much there again in terms of like lead lines and stuff. It was more like a motif that just was like almost like a soundscape for like a scene in Blade Runner. Again, you had that kind of like warping synth to give it that kind of analog sensation. But I thought that song was really cool, man. It was really atmospheric. Into track 10, Vi. This was it was almost quite a sample heavy track. I'm not quite sure what the samples were from. Definitely wasn't in English, so I couldn't work it out. But it was kind of it was quite intense in a way, because like there was a lot of it was quite it was not clattering, but it was quite harsh at the start, and this kind of like female vocal like says something that kind of like brings your attention, because that you don't really get that from the rest of this record. But I think it kind of does it to make you sit up and pay attention as it goes into the finals track, which is Cursed Circle. I mean, this was my standout by a mile. So this song like had there was a bit of tempo with this song. Like the drums kind of started off mid to high tempo, quite very lo-fi black metal. But there was like this synth line that went underneath it that was literally like 3 or 4 notes. It just sort of bounced between it. It really gave it a feel of like a goblin in a dungeon crawling around, and the vocals really like emphasized that feel. It was really cool, man. I think this song is definitely like definitely my standout. But there's a moment in this track around 150. It introduces this lead line, which almost acts as like a solo that goes over that main sort of bouncing dungeon goblin riff. But yeah, that lead line at the end at 150, it nails the tone of what needs to be done. And I thought it was a perfect way to see out the record. It sort of, that song was called Cursed Circle, and it did feel like there was some like weird witchcraft goblin necromancy going on around this music, and I, just really painted a picture of otherworldly oddities, and it was really cool, man. So yeah, all in all, I mean, I'm a big fan of this guy anyway, but this album just sort of kind of cemented it for me. I think if you like Dungeon Synth, definitely check this out. If you like raw black metal, check out the last song because you'll probably get the most of it from there. But definitely like give this album some time, because I think that I think he's hit gold with this. But yeah, if you like what you heard, give us a like and a subscribe. Hopefully on the next episode, Mike will be back and we will be back to normal content for you guys. But yeah, cheers. See you in the next one.